Hello! Today I'm going to show you how to make a diabetic friendly pumpkin dessert. Some of the ingredients you'll need are one giant pumpkin, along with an Oster oven to roast the pumpkin. Additionally, you're going to need some pumpkin spice
And eggs, about half a dozen of them.
some cinnamon and nutmeg, some sort of cooking oil of your choice. I use avocado oil because that's what agrees with me. And my wife, for that matter, she's a diabetic, not me. Some salt. I use pickling and canning salt because there's no caking agents or preservatives. A pie dish to roast it in. I've got an air fryer toaster oven combo thing that's out in the other room though, so I don't got a shot of that, but it doesn't really matter what you cook it in. You could air fry it, you could bake it, you could toast it, whatever you want to do. Let's get this pumpkin carved up. There, that's taken care of, and we'll just cut this off right into the dish, just like this, because this first step we're going to roast the seeds. Double check that my hands are washed and start digging into this. Now, once you're working with clean hands, you can go ahead and scoop everything out of here and into your pumpkin tray. Now, this is a carving pumpkin. I don't think there's too much difference between the carving pumpkins and the pie pumpkins. The carving pumpkins are cheaper. One thing that somebody locally brought to my attention is that you can't actually buy carving pumpkins with EBT. You can only buy the pie pumpkins, which is a little strange because you can get a lot of food out of one of these carving pumpkins. But they let you buy stuff like Red Bull and Coca-Cola and potato chips, but you can't buy a carving pumpkin. Even though it's an edible species of squash, it's quite a bit of food. One thing that does concern me slightly with using carving pumpkins to eat is, the level of pesticide they use on there, like glyphosate or Roundup or whatever is at in any higher concentrations in the carving pumpkins compared to the pie pumpkins. Maybe someone can go out and ask ChatCPG for me in the comments and let me know. I have no idea, but I think these are delicious and I haven't heard anything bad about them. Okay, so once the seeds are all set, we can toss those in the air fryer. Now then, as for the actual pumpkin here, the way I like to roast them, some people cube them. That's how my mom used to do it, homemade pumpkin pie style. She'd spend all day cubing it and then boiling it and also peeling it. I'm not peeling it right now either. That's a step that's to come. Alright, so now we've got, this didn't get cut here. We've got these large pumpkin pie pieces. Not pie yet, but these large pumpkin slices. Now I'm going to turn this camera around and show you what I'm going to do with these. Alright, so this is the Oster oven here. I'm going to put a couple slices on the underside of that and put the tray back in there just like that. Reach over here and grab these two pieces just like that. And it doesn't quite fit, so we'll have to chop these top ones in half one more time just so that we have a little bit of clearance here. There, that should be a little better now. And we'll do the same to this one. Alright, and now that's set. That closes properly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set this bowl on top of it while it cooks. And that way it keeps the weight on, stops it from popping up or anything, because this lid's real light. This is a turkey roaster. And I'm going to cook this on 300 for 1 to 2 hours, maybe 3. It doesn't really matter too much. Just roast it till it's soft, check it once in a while. Once it's soft and not, super hard like a raw pumpkin, once it's soft and gooey, it's done. So I'm going to show you guys what that looks like and time it for you. I've never really timed this process. I just kind of check it periodically. But let's see how long this one takes. I'd imagine it might vary from pumpkin to pumpkin too. But let's see how long this one takes. And let's get these seeds salted and get those in the toaster oven air fryer dealio. So for salting the pumpkin seeds, I just put on a decent amount of salt. I don't want them too salty, you don't want to go overboard. And then a little bit of oil. If you don't put any oil on, then they'll turn out a little See, there's a nice line of oil in there. You don't need a whole lot, just enough to coat the seeds. Alright, let's go put these in the toaster oven. Alright, this is the unit I'm using. It's a Hamilton Beach air fryer toaster oven combo. We'll toss those in there, and we're going to have that on air fry at 450 maxed out. About 1 turn in there, maybe 2. That's about half an hour to an hour. Probably check them and stir them at the first ding at half an hour, and that's all there is to pumpkin seeds. That's the easy part. Now for the oaster, this is turned on. We'll just turn this up to 300 only here, just above the defrost line. You're not really looking to bake this, you're just looking to soften it. And we got our weight on the top there to keep this lid on nice and sturdy. And yeah, we're just going to let that sit. Alright. These are not done yet. This has been 1 turn. I'm just going to give these a nice stir. Try not to burn myself on the edge there. It's very hot. Looking at it from the camera's perspective and rather than my own eye. And get a little close there. That tingled a little. Is that sticking there? Yeah, some of the goo's sticking. That's okay. We'll give these another turn in there. I like them to brown up a little more. They're pretty white. And that'll be the seeds. Now the seeds are great because they're an anti-parasitic. They'll get rid of any worms if you happen to have any, which is awesome. I don't think that's a problem for us. They're also a diabetic-free food as well. They have almost no carb counts, super healthy, full of all sorts of nutrients and minerals. Maybe I'll put some of those up on screen right now. I just stole these from Google. You can Google these and find the same results for yourself about the mineral content and what they're good for and how people promote their health benefits, etc. There's a lot of info out there on them. They're good stuff. Another thing I forgot to mention, don't rinse these or take the goop out because that goop actually adds flavor to the seeds. I did this once before. I got the goop off and I rinsed the seeds and they tasted awful. There was just something totally missing. So leave the goop on, don't rinse them, leave them just as is. Just add salt and oil, toss them in an air fryer, and you're good to go. And as for the pumpkin, it's sitting at 300 degrees. This is hot to the touch. The bowl's starting to warm up a little bit. I'm not even going to bother looking at this yet. I'm going to wait until like the 2-hour mark to poke it with a fork, and by then it should be done. I'm going to call it 2 hours for this. I'll revise that if it's more or less than that. Alright, this thing's got just like a minute left on it, and these are looking great. They're starting to get nice and brown, crispy in a couple areas. So yeah, about an hour to cook those. Let's go look at that pumpkin. Alright, it's been an hour. Be careful touching this stuff because it's hot. Let's see how this pumpkin's looking here. It's getting, yeah, no, it's still really hard. So definitely more than 1 hour. Like I was saying, 3 hours on 300 is probably about what you want to go for with that. Let's set that back on there. And we'll let that sit a while longer. Alright, it has been 3 hours and 33 minutes. Let's see how this is now. Very steamy and tender. The fork goes right through there. You can't really see it because there's steam all over the phone, but trust me, that is nice and tender. I just got into some gaming and left that on there for a little bit. We'll put the lid back on. We'll let that cool down to room temperature, and then I'll show you what I do next now that the pumpkin is totally roasted and soft. Alright, so now that this is cooled off a little bit, it's still quite hot, it's steaming, it's just not like gonna burn me when I touch it. We've got this pumpkin here, and this is all nice and soft, see that consistency, and we're just gonna plop that in a bowl here. And that's about all we do with that. We don't want the skin in there, we just want this nice inner fruit here. That's all nice and soft. Still a bit hot yet. A little bit of the roaster upside down so I can put a piece of the skin in that. So it's falling apart a little bit, and it's a little bit too hot to touch right now. I can one, cook it a little bit less, and two, let it cool a little bit more. We're ending up with a nice big bowl of stuff here. Definitely well worth it. These pieces of skin here, these could be cleaned up a little more. They're just too hot to handle right now, so I'm just scooping out the bulk of it and setting the skin to the side and getting a nice big bowl full here. This I'm going to set in the fridge, and this is going to be our pumpkin dessert material for maybe a week or so. Now inside here, real quick, if I can show you, it doesn't quite, oh, yep, you can see it down here. All this dark water has pooled up. This water is really good stuff. It's sweet, it's tasty, it's full of vitamins, and it's straight pumpkin water. It just came off of the pumpkin. Now I think it's a little weird tasting just straight drinking it, but it's really good as like a coffee flavorant, you know. Put a little bit in your coffee and it's delicious. Alrighty, we've got our weight pumpkin here. That giant bowl's got to be, I don't know, 8 cups worth of pumpkin, which, but the canned stuff's $2 for 2 cups, something like that. Yeah, you save a lot of money doing it this way. The bowl's getting full here. I still got a lot more pumpkin to go here, lots more pumpkin to scoop. What we're going to do is we're going to take some little plastic baggies, like those sandwich bags. Here are those, and what I like to do with these is I'll freeze them. I like to pre-measure them so I know how much is in there. I'll usually measure 1 cup at a time. So here's 1 cup. Loosely, it doesn't have to be exact. And then I'll set these in this little container here, and I'll just fill that up with 3 or 4 cups of pumpkin, and then I'll continue filling this bowl. Not sure how many cups in total are in here. I've never measured one per se, but it's definitely worth it compared to getting the canned stuff or compared to getting a pie pumpkin. cup. There's a baggie. 1 cup pre-measured baggies. That makes things easier in the future. And I've been using 4 cups in my recipe, so I'm gonna take these out in batches of 4 as I need them. Or as the bowl gets overfilled, I'll take out 4 cups and set them aside for freezing. And then I'll continue filling the bowl. And the bowl will rest in the freezer. Or no, the bowl will rest in the refrigerator. And these bags that I'm making will go to the freezer. And then when I want to make something out of them, I'll usually let them sit in the fridge for a day or 2 and thaw out. I don't really like microwaving them so much. I just like letting them thaw naturally. So there's that, 4 bags in 1 little tray here, straight to the freezer. Now that that's sorted, we'll go back to scooping the pumpkin into the bowl. It's getting a little easier to touch now. I might go back to that tray there and see if I can get these as close to the skin as I can get them. That one's pretty good. Doesn't have to be perfect, you know. Just try not to waste too much food, you know. Can't really eat the skins, but you can cut them pretty close. Now that I can handle them, you know. That's about what you want to do. Clean these up a little bit. Get a couple spoonfuls off of these. Solid spoonful off of that one. I could have let this cool a little bit more instead of being impatient and going right for it. Oh well. This one down here is in the water. Probably 3.5 hours is a little bit too long. The skins seem a little loose on here. Any more and you'd have a real hard time with this. Probably 3 hours would have been about perfect. Because it comes right off the skin, but the skin, you know, this one here, it falls off under its own weight. It just falls apart, which is a little bit annoying and tedious, and it's still quite hot down there. It's in this hot water. I'll live though. Alright, giant bowl of pumpkin, dripping a little bit, and drain some water off here. There we go. And then all this pumpkin water here, this stuff is also savable. Now this stuff here is just straight pumpkin water. With some chunks of salt in there. That's good for flavoring coffee and whatnot. Alright, now this can get rinsed out. First, let's do something with all this pumpkin here. I'm going to need to take another 4 cups off the top, it looks like, because this bowl is absolutely overfilling. Maybe we can squish it down some, drain some water off, etc. But that'll fit in the fridge just like that. We'll just set that in there like that, and we'll just take off the top. And that is how you roast the pumpkin. Now, coming up shortly here with part 2, how to make the pie. Let's make one of these things. Or it's not really pie, it's like custard, sort of, but there's no milk in it anymore. We've modified the recipe over. Alright, so let's go ahead and make this pie. First thing, let's start cracking some eggs. I'm going to use 6 eggs. Why 6 eggs? Because It's an adaptation of an old recipe my mom had from this super old cookbook. And in that recipe, it was for pumpkin pie, and the filling called for 3 eggs and half a can of evaporated milk. Well, I have, for my recipe, I've doubled that, but I've taken out the milk because I make 2 batches at once, basically. So 3 eggs doubles to 6 eggs, and 2 cups of pumpkin doubles to 4, so I use 6 eggs and 2 cups of pumpkin. We'll use some soapy water to clean up where I cracked the eggs real quick because sanitary procedure and all.
And then I rub my nose right after saying that. With my jacket at least, though. Kinda sanitary.
Alright, so now 4 cups of pumpkin. And this pumpkin's pretty hot. I hope it doesn't cook the egg. But there's 1. 2. These don't have to be perfect. 3. Oops. Try not to spill it on the table though. And 4. I'll put the eggs back in the fridge. And we'll grab a spoonful of salt. I usually just opt for a pinch, but you know, we got a little spoon today, and it's about that much. Just toss that in there. We also got some ground nutmeg. Got a little sprinkling of that. Good stuff. Cinnamon. Cinnamon's good for lowering blood sugar, so if you're cooking for a diabetic, never use too much cinnamon. Unless you're pregnant, cinnamon's not good for pregnancy. And this is the monkfruit sweetener. This, I believe, is 1/3 of a cup. My cups aren't actually measured here. I'll put the debris in there. But I've used 1/4 of a cup. I've used 1/3 of a cup. It doesn't really matter too much. You'll want it a little bit sweetened though. And then, pretty sure that's everything. Spices, salt, eggs, pumpkin. Hold the milk. And from there we just mix it. Woo! Cord to the mixer was on the camera tripod there. Alright, plug's not near here, the plug's over there. Let's mix this up. You know what? I forgot an ingredient. The oil. Small bit of this avocado oil, same stuff I used on the seeds, just drizzle a little bit right on in there. I know you didn't see how much that was, but you know, that little green spot in there, that's the oil. Not too much. Alright, now that is cooked up, don't lick the beaters, there's raw egg on them. I know some people do that with like everything, but not supposed to eat raw egg like that. Alright, so we'll rinse these off immediately and wash my hands after touching the raw egg here to get these slimier bits off. Alright, I lost my pie tin. Let's see if we can find that. Alright, found the pie dish. Here's that avocado oil. We'll do a smidgen of that. Rub that around. I don't know if this stuff's really necessary because I am not using a crust because we're gluten free. And I wouldn't really call this a custard because there's no milk in it because I'm dairy free. And this dish is sugar-free. So sugar-free, dairy-free, gluten-free. And you might say, well, isn't that literally just pumpkin and eggs? Yeah, pretty much. It's a 3-ingredient pumpkin dessert plus some spices and salt. I don't know if you'd consider the spices part of the ingredient list per se, but yeah, I'd call that a 3-ingredient pumpkin dessert right there. I mean, it needs cooked. Bake it. You know, it's not done yet. Not right there, but, you know, after it toasts in the air fryer for an hour on 450. But I got chicken cooking in there right now, and I only got one air fryer. So I'm going to set this in the fridge to, like, set or whatever. Look at the consistency of that. That is pumpkin pie filling. Pumpkin pie, egg, pumpkin, egg, and a little something sweet, this monkfruit sweetener. Could use stevia too. It's just the same, you know, they're both cut with erythritol. Avoid the kind that has maltodextrin in it. Maltodextrin does raise sugar, erythritol doesn't, but there's a couple studies out there with some negative stuff about erythritol too. So, you know, use it sparingly. Don't go overboard with the stuff. So we'll set that there till after dinner. There's the pumpkin juice behind it. There's some liquid culture for my mushroom growing project. Here's some lion's mane that I grew. It's in the store-bought container here, but you can tell that it's not the kind from Tops, at least not our local Tops here in Bradford, because of how long the tentacles get on them. Same containers though, because I recycled these. Same container that I got the pumpkin in here too. So there's that, and there's that. See you when I put this in the oven. Alright, just like the seeds, we're going to toss this in an air fry on 450, and yeah. Alright, and this smells just like any other pumpkin pie. I'm just going to do the classic 6-piece design here. Or 8-piece design, however. Snag a piece out of here. I'm actually going to have 2. If you're diabetic, I recommend just having 1 at a time. See how it sits with your sugar. Pumpkin does great with my wife's sugar. She's able to have 2 of these. We haven't tried 3, but 2 is enough. 2 is filling, you know. You don't need to go overboard with it. It is a dessert type food. Not really a dessert type food. I mean, it's vegetables and eggs, realistically. I mean, it's real food. Oh, look at this beautiful cat. That's my karma cat. Anyway, let's try some of this pie, see if I made it right, huh? Pie, custard, whatever the heck it is. A little too salty, but it's good. Less salt. Whole spoonful of salt's a little bit much, just a pinch, probably half the amount that I put in. Other than that, this is pretty good. And it's not even that bad, it's just a little bit too much salt, that's all. It's just, you shouldn't really taste it, but if you don't put any salt in there at all, it won't taste right. So, that's my diabetic pumpkin dessert. Make it exactly like that. A little less salt. Maybe roast it for 3 hours instead of 3.5 hours. And yeah, thanks for watching. This has been my diabetic pumpkin dessert. And if you want to add a can of coconut milk to it or whatever, you can call it pumpkin custard, I guess. Yeah, it sets up nicely after you leave it in the toaster oven for a while. And for storing this thing, you can either store it in the fridge, or you can store it at room temperature, just leave it in the toaster oven, leave it covered or whatever. Probably would last longer in the fridge, but around here it doesn't last very long at all. It gets eaten up pretty quick between my wife and I. She's asleep right now and she doesn't want to be in the video. Maybe one day you guys will meet her. Probably due for a RuneScape progress video too. Let's see, my Iron Man, not too much has happened on that. I've just been camping Hydra still. Still no luck at the Hydra's Claw. Over 4,000 KC. I'm taking a break from it now and just restocking on supplies. As for the account that can trade, that's got max combat stats on it now, so that's cool. AFK sand crabs for a bit after the Dead Man Mode tournament. Didn't film the last Dead Man Mode tournament. Nothing interesting happened from my perspective. And my other account, my Pure, I've just been training that up slowly but surely. Got over 70 strength on it with 14 hit points, so that should turn into something interesting. Okay. I think I'll have one more of these. And we'll save those for later. This is good stuff, it really is. Got some more lion's mane growing. I got a whole bunch of bird seed through a GoFundMe. I spent a month or so sterilizing it all. Well, not all of it, but roughly half the bag it looks like. I'm looking at the other half right now. And I took a break on it when the tournament hit for the liquid culture to mature. That matured. I shot up a bunch of grain bags that were sterilized. Hopefully something cool happens with them. Hopefully they don't all turn green and fail. We'll see. Alright, that was delicious. A couple of those scrapings on the bottom of the pan here. Alright, peace guys. Good to the last bite. Give it a try. Diabetic pumpkin pie. No crust. Gluten-free. No dairy. Dairy-free. And no sugar. Sugar-free. Sugar-free, dairy-free, gluten-free. Pumpkin pie. Filling. Give it a try. It's delicious.